and I want to show you the proper way to carry a helicopter. You want to carry it at the blade grips. In flight, that's where all the forces are applied on the helicopter. So naturally the strongest point is where the blade grip is. So you never want to carry it anywhere else except the blade grip, especially not the tail boom. Okay, once you've charged the battery, you want to install it into the battery tray with the straps provided. Or you can use a couple pieces of double-sided tape and tape it onto the battery tray. Now, before we go on any further, you have to check the CG of the helicopter to make sure everything's balanced. Now, to do so, you rotate your flybar until it is perpendicular to your tail boom. And then you want to lift your flybar straight up to see if the helicopter moves towards the front or the back. If it's perfectly balanced, it should stay level. Now, if it's not balanced, you want to move your battery around so that the helicopter becomes balanced at the rotor hub. One last thing before you can plug in your battery for the first time. You want to check to see if your blades are too tight at the blade grip. So what you want to do is you want to move your blades around to see if it's too tight or if it doesn't swing smoothly. If it's too tight, you want to loosen that screw up a little bit, or if it's too loose, you want to tighten that up a little bit. Your blades should move a little bit with a flick of your finger, but it shouldn't swing all the way around. That's how you tell if your tension's right. Finally, we've done all the pre-flight checks out of the box. After you charge up the battery and insert 8 AA batteries into your controller, now you can turn it on by pushing on the on switch to the upward position. And you see the light box flicker several times with different colors, and after it locks to the purple color, that means the controller is initialized and ready to go. Now you want to make sure your trim tab is all the way down on your throttle. If it's not all the way down, if it's in the up position, your speed control on the helicopter may not initialize, so you want to make sure that's all the way down. And you want to make sure the throttle stick is all the way down too, because you don't want to chop off your fingers when you plug in the helicopter battery. Now, when you start out, make sure you're in normal mode and not in 3D mode. And make sure all the trims are centered. And then you can go over to the helicopter and connect the battery. When you connect the battery, it will take several seconds for the servos, this receiver, and the gyro to initialize. Once you connect it, try not to move the helicopter around until the gyro light locks solid red. When it locks solid red and you hear that tone, that means everything is ready to go. Now that your receiver and your gyro has been initialized, for the very first time, you want to make sure that with the proper input on your control sticks, you get the proper movement on your swash plate. To check, apply a little bit of right stick. Your swash plates should move to the right, like such. When you apply left stick, it should go in the opposite direction. When you pull the stick back, your whole swash plate should tilt back and forward. Next, you want to test the tail controls. So, with your throttle stick, move it to the right, and you should see a movement corresponding to your right movement. And when you move your stick to the left, you see that movement. So make sure the directions are correct before you proceed. Next, you want to do a range test on your transmitter and your receiver. Collapse your transmitter antenna all the way and then walk 10 meters away. Now, try your controls. You want to make sure you don't have any glitches, and every control comes back with a movement of the swash plate. Before going on any further, you want to make sure you pull your antenna back out to test flight. The final thing you want to check is blade tracking. What I mean by blade tracking is that your two main rotor blades should travel and spin on the same plane. If one blade spins at a higher plane and the other one a lower plane, you will have vibration problem which affects your control in flight. To test this, you want to slowly spool up the head. Apply very little throttle until the helicopter spins. And basically, you want to eyeball the two blades to see if one is flying higher than the other. To make it easier to see which blade is higher and which blade is lower, you want to apply a piece of color tape at the tip of one blade. Let's say you put a black piece of electrical tape on one blade and spin up. Make sure you don't want to hit the throttle too hard. The helicopter will lift off. You want to add the quarter stick to do it coming full speed, and you want to see if the blades are traveling in the right plane. In this case, it's perfect out of the box. If your blade tracking is not perfect, what you want to do is to find the one that's higher or lower, and you want to adjust this linkage right here. You want to shorten it to make the blade travel at a lower plane. You want to lengthen this linkage to make the blade travel at a higher plane. So basically, you adjust one side to match the other until the two blades travel in the same plane. For beginners, I strongly recommend adding the optional training gear, which are the 4 ping pong balls and the carbon rods. This saves a lot of damages and broken parts. It keeps the plane level so that it doesn't tip over and damage some of the major components. It is a good investment. For beginners, I strongly recommend adding the optional training gear, which are the 4 ping pong balls and the carbon rods. This saves a lot of damages and broken parts. It keeps the plane level so that it doesn't tip over and damage some of the major components. It is a good investment. You have completed the introduction setup guide for beginners. Now you're ready to move on for intro flight guide.